Howdy y'all, it's your favorite trainer, the butt buckle. Today we're gonna help you pass the NASM-CPT with overactive and underactive muscles. What do you need to foam roll? What do you need to stretch? We're gonna help you pass it. We've had over 600 people pass the NASM-CPT, but if you wanna be great, you gotta go through an internship. Our next class is gonna begin early July in San Diego and Los Angeles. We want you guys to become great, not average. Do you know your blood pressure? What is it? What should be good? 120 over 80. What's hypertension? 140 over 90. What does blood pressure even mean? Systolic, diastolic, the silent killer they call it. The average trainer quits within a month, not when you go through an internship like Up Fitness. We want you guys to become great. Check out my book. Check out our link, patreon.com/Show Up Fitness. It's where great trainers are made. We want to help you guys become awesome. So let's get into this. NASM, overactive, underactive muscles. Now, chapter 7, page 196, there's a lot of stuff on there. Throw that away, don't worry about it. Type in typical overactive and underactive muscles, table 6.1 CES. This is the chart that they use, NASM uses in the corrective exercise book. It's way better. And if you memorize this chart for the CPT, it's gonna save you a ton of time. So what you need to do is pick a side and just memorize it. And I guarantee you, you will pass the NASM-CPT. So remember, according to NASM, if something's tight, what do you need to do? Foam roll 20 to 40 seconds. Hold it there, and then you're gonna go into a static stretch, 20 to 40 seconds. And then you're gonna activate the opposite muscles. So let's take a look at the hip. Anterior, lateral, medial, posterior. So if you have knee valgus, which is coming in transverse plane of motion, your adductors are going to be overactive. So you need to foam roll for 20 to 40 seconds. You need to stretch. After that, you're going to strengthen the opposite. So it's going to be like your glute max upper fibers and your glute med. NASM is going to ask you 5 specific muscles, popular muscles as I call them. They're not going to ask you the sternocleidomastoid or your, let's think of another hard one. I can't think off the top of my head, the sartorius. They're not going to ask you the challenging muscles that you probably never heard of. NASM makes money when you get more certifications, which leads me into, don't get any more. Don't get the CES, don't get the PES, the FNC, all that bullshit. No, you need to get hands-on experience. You need to watch people train. You need to have someone observe you training people and give you feedback. That's how you're going to become great. So we're going to start off on the left side, which is overactive. We'll identify those muscles so you know what you need to do. Start off with the posterior distal muscles. We have the gastroc and the soleus. The gastrocnemius is the larger posterior one, and then deep is going to be the soleus. Together, they're going to go into the Achilles tendon, your calcaneus bone. NASM's not going to ask you a lot of questions. They would about anatomy. They may ask you, which of the following muscles is overactive when your client squats and their feet turn out? So you're looking for the gastrocnemius or the soleus. The adductors, as we're moving more proximal. Proximal is closest to the point of midline. You have your adductors. You have 3 of them, magnus, longus, brevis. They're not going to ask you that. They're just going to ask you about the big topic, so adductors. Hamstring complex. Just all of the hamstrings NASM is going to say is overactive. So the lateral one would be your bicep femoris, but they're just going to say hamstrings. Your psoas major. It's your main hip flexor. So when you do this, and you hold here for 15 seconds, which 1 should be a prerequisite before any type of unilateral movement, but 2, if people complain about tightness or their hip is bothersome deep in there, do this little test for 15 seconds. And if they hold it for 15 seconds and they feel some pain in there, that muscle's probably weak, and that's going to be your psoas major. Your tensor fasciae lata, TFL, starts on the lateral portion, comes down, and is going to insert on the lateral side of the knee. It's biarticulate. Rectus femoris is one of the 4 quad muscles. It starts on the hip, comes down into your kneecap or your patella. It's going to work with flexion and extension. NASM's not going to ask you that. They just want you to know that the rectus femoris is overactive. Piriformis, they're not going to ask you about that one, but it's a deep butt muscle. If you go to your PSIS, posterior superior iliac spine, and then you go into your butt bone, which is your ischiotuberosity, right in the middle is your piriformis. They also call it like sciatic piriformis syndrome because it's compressing against the sciatic nerve. Deep in there, underneath the glute max and the med, in the min, you're going to get your piriformis. Quadratus lumborum, quadrilateral for equal parallel lines, and the femoris, your femur. So your quadratus, this is quadratus lumborum, sorry, your lumbar region. So you do have a quadratus femoris as well. It's deep in your glute. It's an external rotator. Don't worry about that. But your quadratus lumborum comes across both sides. Your rectus spinae. They're not going to ask you about the QL. They're not going to ask you about the piriformis. Not going to ask you about the rectus spinae. Don't worry about those. Pec Major Minor. Two different muscles. Major is the big superficial one. You can remove that, and underneath you have the Pec Minor. If you put your hands straight out and you just flex your elbows, that's where your Pec Minor is. It's going to work with protraction of your scapula, secondary breather. Latissimus dorsi and the teres major. You can grab the meat in your armpit. The big meat portion is your latissimus dorsi. The teres major is the smaller one. They're going to pull you in. Upper trapezius, it's going to be your main upper, overactive upper neck muscle. Your levator scapula is going to be underneath that. So here's the posterior side, here's the anterior side. You have the sternocleidomastoid, they're not going to ask you about that one. And then your scalenes, they're going to be deep back in here. So out of that left-hand side, I would write those all out on the flashcard. Just like in a deck of cards. Put them all together and then just go through them. Turn it over, erector spinae, and just say overactive or underactive. And just get in the habit of recognizing overactive or underactive. So the next side we're going to get into is the underactive muscles, of which you want to strengthen with the 4-2-1 tempo according to NASM. So know your mechanoreceptors. Your Golgi tendon deals with tension. Automatically associate that with autogenic inhibition. Muscle spindle is going to sense a stretch. Spindle stretch. And then you have your joint receptors. Those are the 3 mechanoreceptors. So on the right side, underactive muscles, 4-2-1, you're going to strengthen. Your anterior and posterior tibs. So let's go back and identify the overactive ones on the posterior side. So then the anterior ones are going to be weak. Your anterior tibia, tibialis, and right behind that's your posterior. Those are weak dorsiflexors. Your VMO, vastus medialis oblique muscle. 4 quad muscles. We told you the biarticulate rectus femoris, which works at the hip and the knee. But then you have 3 quad muscles, 3 vastus muscles, Vastus lateralis, medialis, intermedius. If you want to get technical, they'll say that the lateralis would be your overactive, the VMO would be underactive. Your glute max, big, and then your med, TVA, transverse abdominis. Internal oblique is going to be underneath the external oblique. Multifidi muscle are going to be deep in your low back, serratus anterior. Mid and lower trapezius. Your rhomboid major and minor. Teres minor, infraspinatus, those are rotator cuff muscles that you cannot feel. They're underneath the deltoid. Posterior deltoid, and then your deep cervical flexor. So notice how fast I went over some of those. If you're listening to this for the first time and you didn't recognize any of these muscles, they're probably not going to be on the test. They're going to ask you obvious muscles. So for example, put all these cards together, mix them up, draw. What is this muscle? Serratus anterior. Underactive. Next one, piriformis, under or overactive? Overactive. And you just go through that and you spend 15 minutes a day flashcarding, just choosing, you will memorize overactive and underactive. Now, if you're maybe got a day left before your test and you just want to know exactly, not exactly, but the main ones to focus on, let's look at the overactive ones. Gastroc, adductor, psoas, lats, chest, upper traps. Know those 6. Those are what are going to be on the test. Underactive, anterior tibialis, VMO, glute max and med, TVA, transverse abdominis, mid-lower trapezius, deep cervical flexors. Know those 6 over and underactive muscles, and really you don't need to go much through chapter 7. It's a big portion. But chapter 7 is just this. And when you look at the overhead squattus test, remember we have 4 postural tests. The overhead, single leg, push and pull. We have 5 performance. Bench press, push-up, squat, Davies, and shark skill. You need to know all those variables within. So for the Davies test, how far are my hands apart? How long do I do it for? For the shark skill, how much am I penalized? Got to memorize all that stuff. And our study guide is just going to clean all this. It's going to help you navigate through the NASM-CPT so you don't have to waste hours learning information that's outdated. I'm sorry, but stabilization has been debunked. Hypertrophy, a lot of flaws in their phase 3. Max strength in phase 2 as well as 5, they're okay, but NASM's programming is inferior. The example I give in class would be, we're in LA right now. Imagine if I were to tell you the fastest way to get to Las Vegas would be driving to San Francisco and then going to Vegas. Sure, you're going to get to Vegas, but why not just go straight across the 3.5 hours on the I-10. You're going to get there a lot faster. Go east. You're going to get there. NASA makes it very convoluted. Their textbook, in my opinion, is subpar at best. C-, D+. Yeah, sure, you can use it and do okay, but you don't want to be okay. You want to be great. The statistics today show the average certified trainer quits within a year. Not when you go through Show Up Fitness. We're biased, sure, because we're fixing the problem. The average trainer sucks. They don't know how to program. They don't know how to work with people. They don't understand social media, sales, service, none of that. You're not going to learn that in the NASM textbook. I'm a Texas fan. If you want to become great, go through an internship. Watch this video again, memorize overactive, memorize underactive, know when your arms fall forward, lean, and valgus, which muscles will be over and underactive. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and YouTube if you want to become a trainer. It's where great trainers are made with a cool belt buckle. Check us out, showupfitness.com, patreon.com/showupfitness.